looking forward to having that conversation with you. Thank you so much, Kilawhina, and welcome. Welcome to the panel. Right, I saw a purple flash going on at Dean. Dean, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dean Hine. I'm the Managing Director of Africa and co-founder of Talk 360. Talk 360 is an international calling app that allows anyone to call anywhere in the world. It's a paid service, which allows you to call from an app, but call to an offline phone, meaning that you could call a landline and you can call somebody who doesn't even have the Talk 360 app anywhere in the world. We do not proclaim to have the technology as our IP, but we have taken the technology and enhanced it purely based on a couple of things. One, with the digital divide in Africa, most of these digital services were not being offered in Africa. So we've looked at just bridging that digital divide by localizing the product in Africa. For example, we support more than 25 currencies in Africa, where we also have multiple payment methods, whether it be cash, whether it be the scattered payments that you'll see in all of Africa, where in Kenya, for example, they use M-Pesa. We provide that you can top up your account in M-Pesa and your local currency. So we've built that ecosystem with the focus being on bridging that digital divide for communication within the African continent. We have offices in the Netherlands. I'm based in Johannesburg. We have a satellite office in Nigeria, starting another one in Kenya, and we have an office in India as well. So yeah, that's us in a nutshell.
And growing stronger and stronger by the day, I have to assume. So thank you so much, Dean. Definitely looking forward to this enhanced technology within the African context and how you overcome and bridge the different ways in which people pay in Africa. I found that being in Nigeria very interesting, that we're so used to the ATM system here in South Africa, and there are multiple ways that people get to pay for certain services in Africa. So please, that's fantastic, and it's so close to this industry that it's just phenomenal how people bridge that gap. Right. Shall we call on Kutso next? I do see a Kutso, if you do not mind.
Thank you, Linda. I'm
Yes.
Kutso. I am the head of SABC News Resources. Basically, I look after anything technical when it comes to the production of news on our different platforms, that is television, radio, and our digital platform. I've been in broadcasting this is my 22nd year in broadcasting. So I've only worked for one company, which is SABC. And I started as a technician here, became a satellite specialist, and then moved over to the news department last year. But communications has been a core part of my job for the last 21 years, where I would connect all the different remote areas, satellite offices. That was my responsibility at SABC. SABC has about 13 offices. We have at least one in each region. Some regions have 2 or 3, but yeah, every province has an office, and we have the overseas bureaus as well that all need to be interlinked. So yeah, I'll share some of the info as we speak later. Looking forward to that.
Thank you so much, Kutso. We're also very much looking forward to your insight, your 22-year insight. You've seen the industry grow from being a technician and in one company, being a technician, as to where you are and what you've done up to now. That's phenomenal. That's amazing. Looking forward to hearing your side of the story, if I might say so. All right.
Sure.
You see, I know a little bit about media as well. So what next on Candice? Candice, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Great, thank you. Hello, Linda. Hello, my fellow panelists, and hello, everybody attending. This is an awesome topic, and I'm well excited. So my name is Candice Machado. I work at South African Tourism, which is an extension of the Department of Tourism, and responsible for marketing this most beautiful country as a tourism destination for leisure, business, and events. I work in the digital operations area, and digital operations portrays to all the digital platforms and tools and systems that serve to market the country, so the external facing platforms. And we're in one division called Digitech, which is actually a combination of ICT together with digital, largely linked to the topic we're discussing today. So ICT and the digital worlds have come together so much that in our space we've actually created that particular one division to work closely. Myself, Candice Machado, I studied marketing. And as soon as I started working, the digital revolution kicked in. Internet became a thing, search became a thing, social media became a thing, and marketing transformed into digital marketing. And we're now in a space where we actually talk about marketing technology. And essentially we see that any way a successful business wants to market themselves, it has to be based on technology predominantly. So I'm excited to unpack what some of challenges are from that merging, and excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Candice. Absolutely. You know, it's being not in the country and seeing images of South African tourism everywhere here in Nigeria. I'm so grateful for you because it does bring me closer to home. I told you that before we started, and it's such a wonderful sight to see your logo and to see your activity in my area, Nigeria. It's really a pleasure and welcome. I'm looking forward to these challenges, especially within digital marketing and within your frame of reference on how these two, like you said, came together. So thank you so much for that. Loyiso, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, Linda. Hi, panelists. Good day to all the attendees, wherever in the world you're connecting from. My name is Loyiso Boyce. I'm the Managing Director and founder of Clairo4. I know it's a tricky name. It's Clairo4. We are a specialist information security provider. We're in our 9th year of operating across South Africa, Africa, and the Middle East. And we only do information security. What does that mean? Everybody that has spoken, even Mr. Makate, when he comes on in the FMCG space, everybody's industry is impacted by technology. Kele has a number of records of students that she needs to protect so that she doesn't annoy the information regulator. Kuto is responsible for many satellite offices. He's got the IP for SABC, many interviews, lots of media. That's worth a lot of money. Candice has indicated that from a tourism perspective, they have many digital platforms that they're using to drive the message that South Africa is safe, is a good place to visit. All of those must be protected. And Dean, obviously being in the payment space, very stringent, lots of compliance issues to do there. All the hackers want people's money. So if your story is not straight in that space, you are quickly going to be challenged. So in a nutshell, we get exposed to a number of industries who are in the telco space, financial services, engineering, public sector, everything from awareness training of staff, penetration testing, protecting. So we have a lot of, with the fourth industrial revolution, a lot of stuff is going to be automated. A lot of, think about autonomous driving, think about cameras that they use to fight crime in the cities, all these sensors that they have at Eskom, at Rainwater to check water, all these things are now being used in the case of war. So we know that we've had countries whose water supply has been hacked, and then they interfered with the amount of chemicals they use to clean the water. We know that we've had countries whose power supply have been hacked. So it's a crazy new world, and we are lucky to be in that space, trying to keep our customers safe.
Thank you so much, Louise. Look, I think most people, when they think about digital age, and I think most fears were born from the cybersecurity kind of ideas where people, if I start becoming part of, if I use my banking app, people are going to steal my information, So I think that's where these type of fears for technology, especially with those who are not millennials, if I I'd put it that way. But you know, that type of fear was bred exactly in where you are focusing on, because people maybe lay like me, lay and not really understanding how tight these securities and how continuous the securities that you have to be ahead of is part of this industry. I think it's fabulous, and I've always wanted to link with someone within cybersecurity in this way, because you know, hacking. People are always very interested in hacking, and I think there's a very fine line between the creativity of hackers and the creativity of those who are preventing it too. That it's creative. It's a wonderful world of creativity, this world that you are in, even though, you know, it's also a wonderful world of analytics and logistics. I think when we start talking about the skills gaps and how do we make sure that we have the talent of the future, it is something that we can robustly get involved in that conversation. And last but definitely not least, Mankwe, if you would like to introduce yourself. Mankwe, you are mute. If
oh, sorry about that. Thanks, Linda. So my name is Mango Makate. I've been in the IT space since maybe before Google came out in the old days of Windows for work groups. I've been a developer, and unlike some of my other colleagues, I've never been in much in the entrepreneurial space, been a corporate animal as a developer in various industries, from banking to FMCG to government. But I've seen maybe digital transformation from the inside out, right? How it impacts organizations internally, what is the barriers to change, right? The organizational politics, and it's an interesting space. I currently work for Coca-Cola, driving digital transformation in about 14 countries that we operate in, especially digitizing customer and digitizing consumer and digitizing the core. Yeah, thanks, Linda.
Wow, that's very interesting. Digitizing customer, digitizing consumer. Very interesting. I would love to hear a little bit more about that. But thank you very much, everybody. Well done on the introductions there. A lot of all these, a lot of things that you've already highlighted that I would like to continue with in the conversation and having the conversation with one another. So maybe we should start with the question, the impact of the digital revolution on ICT. And I know digital revolution, you know, digital revolution, the digital age evolving as to where it is today. Maybe if you could add value to the listeners or to the other participants, just explain to us where, and a lot of you have this beautiful experience throughout the years, where we are today, where we are moving towards. So I don't know who would like to start this conversation. I think there's about 3 questions in one there that I asked, but if you would like to link and start off the conversation, who shall I ask? Who would like to start this conversation off? Maybe a Mankwe, if you would like to take this one on and move us forward towards this.
Yeah, I think maybe I think I mean, you reflected maybe, Linda, quickly on some of the questions that you posed to us about where we are. I think first is the impact of whether ICT industry itself is being digitized, right, or being disrupted by the very same technologies ICT is using. For example, we had roles in IT, like we had people like service desk technicians in most companies now. It's a dead skill, right? We had database administrators. With things moving to the cloud, really is almost non-existent. But we've also seen a couple of industries like social scientists coming into the IT space, marketers, the soft skills about whether it's user experience, people who contribute differently, right? Questions of ethics have been raised in the IT space about disruption, about what's going to happen when you've automated almost everything. Do you still need a lawyer? Do you still need, with mass unemployment, what is going to happen? Do I still even need a lecturer? If I can record everything and play it and do marketing, do I still need a facilitator if I can have a bot doing this type of things? So from that space, we have seen some organizational models changing. in terms of HR structures, but maybe one of the things I would say is that maybe even HR structures are not driven by, for example, AI as a default, right? So they go and do an organizational structure and think technology must come. But if you start from inside in, you think with technology first, most of these organizational structures, the way we operate starts to change. And that is why most of your born in the cloud companies, whether it's Airbnb, whether it's Uber, etc., can disrupt most organizations so easily because of that lack of legacy and doing things better with fewer people who are multifaceted, multi-skilled, and who've got different skill sets overall. Yeah.
Very interesting points you are making there. Multi-skilled, multifaceted, multi. So where do we go to from here? Maybe Candice, you would like to say something about that, or even you, Kelly, knowing what your company is doing. Kelly, Candice?
Yes, I mean, the digital revolution has been quite a journey, right, in this move from analog into digitizing space. The internet started to become a thing. Then very quickly search started to become a thing. Then very quickly social media and mobile started to become a thing. And here we are in the wearables, the artificial intelligence. And what's next, right? It's really not going to stop. What's happened here is how we ultimately communicate and how people live their day-to-day lives has an impact on an organization, as Mankwe actually indicated, right? And from here, we start to have the conversation of tech stacks, which is quite a complex conversation in the corporate world, because you've got technology that's great from an enterprise standpoint and ticks all the boxes to manage an enterprise, but then you've got a tech stack to engage with the world and to do all these other things. And those tech stacks don't necessarily talk to each other across all components. So it's one of the impacts, right, is this tech stack conversation, and what do you go for when you need one solution that merges what you do outside with what you do inside?
Well, I think there's a lot that we need to say a little bit more about the tech stack and how do you, and I think something that you also, Mankwe, alluded to is that change in structures. How do we talk to the inside needs of an organization as well as that external need of the organization, the customer, the consumer? Maybe Kelly, I see you nodding your head. Is there something you would like to add to that conversation of Candice?
No, well, I'm just thinking and remembering when I was doing HR many moons ago as part of my studies, and how e-learning was a thing that was coming up, that it looked at the time like, what? Because then HR also used to be put so much in the corner and not integrated as part of the organization, and how it has moved now. Like the structures are becoming flatter as well, where with digitization, everybody is being brought on into the fore, as opposed to when it just used to be so much that it's the head that knows everything. And how are you bringing in everybody's capabilities, availabilities, and given the impact of social media, the exposure now that the workforce has, it has just become really amazing and exciting, and almost to the detriment of leaders if they don't tap into that. The digital space has really made everybody almost a really useful part of the puzzle. It's not just that they just come, like everybody has bits and pieces of stuff that they can contribute because of the digital space, because of the era that we're in. And it's just allowing us to empower ourselves so much more than when we used to in the days have to wait for organization to take you to training. If there's an area that you're interested in, you can quickly just now go on into the social media, onto the YouTubes of this world and learn about it, and then grow into the company, which is making life that much easier and exciting as well.
Growth as the industry that you are in. I wonder if Kuto, if you would like to add value to that Kelly has just said. But yes, e-learning is definitely one of them. And Mankwe alluded to the fact that we're even going to need a facilitator if we can get bots to do that. Oh, there's a lot of people on the panel who would like to talk to you about that one. But maybe Kutsu, if you could add value to the statement that Kelly has just alluded to, exactly about that change. And I mean, you've been part of that. You've seen that change happening yourself as well in a very structured organization, a very hierarchical organization. If you would like to say something about that.
Sure, Lina. Fortunately, being part of the company for so long, 22 years that I'm speaking about, I entered when SABC was purely analog. And I've seen them move from analog to digital in the space of HD, SD, as you talk about it. And now we are moving into IP. But I myself studied electrical engineering, did some radio, did some TV at Technicon. But the skills that I was taught, they need a lot of upgrading now, because that was purely analog, and it assisted you a bit when we moved into the 2003s, when we started our high definition and standard definition broadcasts. But when it comes to IP, it's a different story altogether. And you'll probably find the older traditional engineers struggle quite a lot with that. In the analog world, every signal has its own cable or medium from point A to point B. But once you jump into the IP space, we are all on an Ethernet cable, and you can run your power, your signal, your control, everything on one cable. So that means troubleshooting can be slightly a challenge if you are not skilled with those IP skills. So e-learning has helped a lot. I myself, anything that has to do with IP, I have taught myself on the internet. I use so much of my time researching and encouraging colleagues to research, because currently there isn't actually a course that is tailor-made for the engineer that you need today, where your networks specialist and your video audio specialist actually need to come together and share some of the troubleshooting or skills that are needed to take a company forward. So I see our learning and development departments having to actually go out and find these courses for people, or us who have the experience of analog right through to IP, designing such courses. Training is also a big passion of mine. I do training at SABC for other things, and I'm actually looking at training some of the employees or staff members in the move from analog digital to IP. IP and broadcasting, I see it as the last standard. I don't see us moving past the IP one. I think we're just gonna make it easier and more friendly to people that need to use it. You don't need to be the guru that needs to go in and set up the networks part just to see a video or hear an audio. But I think we can take the industry forward, because we are the ones that experienced it from analog to today. But e-learning will definitely assist a lot of that learning.
But I think that's a very interesting statement and a very giving statement that you're making as to the experts, and this is what we're doing today, the experts getting together and sharing their knowledge and sharing their information. Knowledge share within the knowledge management framework is so important, and it's something that maybe us as Africans are very familiar with, right? We share, we give information, we grow those under us and those who need the information to move a country, to move ahead with something as diverse and as developmental as ICT, as digital and things like that. And you're right that very often the course that you started 3 months ago is not relevant anymore today, or by the time you finish it in 18 months coming. How do we stay abreast with that? How do we make sure that that new talent is not left behind? Because it's maybe you could say something about that too as a panel. Is it a natural instinct? Is it something that can be learned? I think Kutsu, you you alluded to it, but how do we do this? How do we retain, develop new talent, make sure, Kelly, you are in this environment where you want to make a very broad or a very definite statement that there need to be more women within this field. How do we do that? How do we add value across board equally within this framework? And it's very, I mean, there's so many different ways in which you can use talent within your industry. So maybe, Kelly, if you would like to start this conversation, if someone else would like to add value to what I just say, or answered what I just say. Kelly, I'm putting you on the spot here, if you don't mind.
That's fine. I have started this outfit because I realized that we're really not having enough conversations. So like many other times before where there has been a lot of buzzwords, 4IR has been the latest buzzword, but you ask every second person what that is and they don't really know, but it's what's happening. It's something, it's, you know. And the question was then what happens beyond this 4IR? But even within the 4IR, what conversations are you having with a typical child that's in the townships? I find it disheartening that you then have a lot of students that will be picketing saying, we've got degrees and we're not getting jobs. And I've made it my business to ask, what degree do you have? And it's a BA something. They themselves can't articulate a BA in one. And the kind of conversations we're supposed to now be having with them, even when they enroll, is with whatever qualification you are enrolling for, where do you see it? How do you see it? What's the impact? Who has gone ahead and just really made? And what are the current skills? What are the future skills? What are the jobs of the future? Those are the kind of conversations that we are encouraging them to have. What are the cross-cutting kind of sectors that will always remain? We're currently running the Digital Youth Festival. It started last week, and thanks to SABC, we got really good coverage in the past 2 weeks, and I hear Limpopo SABC will be covering us as well. But the Digital Youth Festival is intended to bridge the digital divide. There are some skills we're saying to them, for your life entire, even when solar is coming, you always need an electrician. You always need a plumber, right? IT is cross-cutting. IT is one of those really beautiful, what you call careers where you work in tourism, you'll work in construction, you'll work wherever, because it is forever required. There's systems, there's this and there's that. So we are challenging them to think differently. It's not just about getting some sort of a degree so that you can say you have a degree. It is what will you be able to do with that degree? Is it just so that you tick a box, or is it so that you would be able to implement, change your own life and impact society ultimately? And now for those that have had the degrees that they are struggling to have jobs for, we're saying, how can we then turn that into creating a business? How do we help you learn a basic coding and programming skill? Because those are the kind of skills that are required now, right? We're running IT systems development with the CETAs. How do we take unemployed graduates and just turn them to the next level so that with what they had and the new IT skills, then they can perhaps be in a position to create something? But I really think we're not having enough conversations, and the conversations are not even filtering enough to the communities. We tend to think that when we're thinking rural, it's really far, where there's hearts in Vembeb and that kind of, like peri-urban. You'll be amazed, like just 30 kilometers from your center, there is so much people that don't know anything about anything that's happening in the ICT sector. So let's have those conversations. And even if in our own space as individuals, how are we having those chats with the youth that are coming up? And just, it doesn't cost you much to share a did you know kind of thing, you know, in the spaces that we're all playing that is so impactful. I mean, SABC was going analog and digital. Just last week, I was asking somebody, do you know what that means? And they couldn't answer that. But it's those basic kind of things that even as we as organizations, SABC, we are doing the digital migration. Are we having the conversation? Are we taking the people along?
Yeah, which links very closely to what Kutso also said, is that we are in a space to share. We're in a space to, it's not just a space to do it because we want to, it's our responsibility. You have had the opportunity, you've paid forward, basically, is what you are saying. My question, however, might I don't know, it might be controversial, but when do we start to have this conversation with youth? And who's responsible? Is it just us? How, I mean, you said your youth experience has been broadcasted and enhanced by the SABC to allow for further reach. But where do we start these conversations? Where do we make sure that it is not a foreign industry to people? Because people still shy away from your industry because it's just for clever people.
It starts at home, man. It starts at home. Let's have those conversations with our kids. Let's challenge them. We can't wait for government for forever. I mean, the wheels have been turning really slow. What we've also challenged ourselves to do is to start doing those coding and programming for the youngsters. So this past June holidays, we did it for kids in primary. Again, we want to introduce them to IT software development when they're in high school. It's late. You want them to grow up engaging with that robotics. It's there, it's beautiful. I wish in all elementary schools they could just, because that's problem solving. That's so much things that comes out of that. So, but if nowhere else, let's start the conversations at home. And we take it from there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Loyiso, I see you would like to add value to that. Yes, sir.
First of all, apologies to everybody. I'm struggling with fiber connectivity. My line just went down, so I'm now on my phone. I hope you can hear me okay. I hope the streaming is not too bad. Fantastic.
Very clear.
And I like to agree with what Kele has indicated. It needs to start at home. The cell phones that we give to our parents and the young kids we have has more computing power than what was used to get to the moon all those decades ago. Let's not forget that. It's a portal to the world, to a wonderful world and a potentially horrendous world in the same breath as well. It's a massive opportunity. We're talking about a country with limited employment and not enough opportunities. The internet gives us the opportunity to get ourselves employed, express ourselves in multiple ways, and have the world as our potential customer. What is the challenge? The skills, Manko has touched on it very nicely. The world of cybersecurity, the online world moves so quickly. It's impossible to stay abreast in everything. You go and study your BA, and Kele has touched on that very nicely. But even if you go and study your BSc, specializing in computer science and all of that, by the time you finish your degree, most of the stuff that you have learned won't be irrelevant, but you definitely won't be in a position to add value to the business that wants to hire you or the customers that your company services. So what do we do? There's a wealth of information all over, but it's critical that us, when I say us, is the ones that have a semblance of some knowledge of the dangers and the benefits that this can provide. Start talking to our kids, the people that our dependents, and those born before technologies, the older people, right? We need to talk to them as well. Not you, Linda, don't you dare. Why? Because more and more services are being rendered online, whether it's private entities or government services. So being able to pay your bill, lodge complaints online saves citizens money and inconvenience, but now you're forced to operate online. So these things are critical, and the opportunity is that there are many courses, short courses, 6 months, weeks, that give you relevant skills, not just knowledge, skills, and would mean that if a company if Carrefour was to hire you today, and I send you to Coca-Cola, and Marco is saying, Loyiso, I have all these facilities that need to be monitored. I need to be in a position that whatever resource I put there tomorrow realizes value tomorrow. So what does that mean? It means that HR being able to retain their people, train their people with relevant skills, what's relevant now and what is coming. HR moves from being a cost center to being potentially a revenue generating entity. Why? Because skills, relevant skills are not there. And if you're able to retain the best talent, attract the best talent, invariably in the areas of cybersecurity, fintech, automation, all the bleeding edge technologies, you will be able to attract customers and grow your business. So skills development is critical at a personal level, yes. It's critical for businesses that you work for and the customers that our businesses service.
Yeah, that are using the services of the business. Yeah, I hear what you were saying. Mankwe, your hand is up. Would you like to add value to that?
Yeah, actually, because as the Kelo was talking, I just wanted to reflect on my career, right? I started self-taught. You phone somebody, say, I want to be in IT, you teach yourself programming, and then you start, right? I think IT is one of the careers with the lowest barriers to entry, right? And I was going to ask maybe an HR-related question, which talk about cognitive abilities, desire, hunger, right? Those are the things you can never teach, right? I think Boys was talking to say you can go to Udemy now or the Khan Academy, you can do a couple of things on cloud, and within 18 months, you'll be mostly employable, right? So in a normal distribution curve, obviously there are people who will have connections. They will go to UCT or they'll go to Harvard, etc. They'll have a social capital to get into organization. You get a mass of people who will stand in a queue and say, there is no jobs, then you get other people who will bang at that door. It's like going through a nightclub. They'll jump through the back. They won't stand in the queue, right? They'll do whatever is required to get into the industry. So maybe in terms of those reflection to say, again, I'm cautious to say in an HR space, even if certification is not knowledge, is not cognitive abilities, is not education. The world's plus skills required of an IT professionals are mostly soft, relating and networking, initiating action, right? Being a self-starter. Those are the things you cannot measure or touch, but they could be cognitive, or you can encourage them. Because even I've seen people with a master's in IT in a corporate space who were almost useless, right? And I have seen as well in banking people with no degrees who are excellent solution and enterprise architects, right? And as we think, I say maybe the traditional way of recruiting for skills in the digital age, especially from an HR perspective, some of it is completely archaic. I know at some point reading about Deloitte and PwC internationally doing away with formal qualifications, etc., to say the way you recruit and look for talent in a digital age, it should be use case and practice. There's a world of theory and then there's a world of practice. What have you done? How do I measure hunger? How do I measure those other soft skills that will show me that you are most likely to succeed in a role? If you look at the world of coding that Kayla was talking about, it is largely how many lines of code have you written in your life? You can study coding, or if you've written lots of code, you become good at it. Is the world of practice. So I think those are some of the challenges which I think are holding us back. And if you look at countries like India, where the clear vision about what they want to do in the IT space, just train lots of developers, etc., became a world-class country in terms of exporting skills, but that started from as well a country vision. From organization, individual organization, family, we seem to lack that consistent messaging about what is it that we want to do and be good at. As a result, with lack of maths and science, we end up being consumers of technology. So we implement products developed in India, in the US, and we said, but we are not really, we're just consumers of AWS, of Azure, of Office product, etc. We don't get to where we produce our own technologies and capabilities. So we become spectators in this digital economy. And I think our HR organizations or CHROs should change that narrative from just being consumers just to be more of producers of technology. But that requires a lot more than just shortcuts as well. Just top of mind.
That's true, the practical applicability thereof and making sure that you can do what is required of you to do. Dean, I see your hand is up, and then Candice, your hand was also up. I don't know, it dropped down now. I don't know if you dropped it, but Dean, if you would like to add.
Yes, I think Mango touched on some really important points. And I mean, in our world, we face an environment where we've got employees in 4 different continents. So if we are going to look at HR in its traditional format of certificate or a degree, it doesn't make sense because those qualifications differ from continent to continent. And HR in itself, in its traditional form in this industry, is a bit archaic to expect to have a BCom degree in tech, because what somebody's studying in India, for example, or for example, we have developers in Nigeria. You know, the skill sets that are there are not necessary from a formal institution. Some are self-taught, some are from online courses that people have actually consumed. So in that sense, the HR part of this is not around qualifications per se, but it's also about 2 things. One, the skill set. How competent are you at a certain a skill that we need as a business? That is not a paper trail or a certificate-based discussion. It is doing practical tests or giving practical examples or use cases for people who want to be hired to actually be able to solve the problem for what you need in your own organization. I think that's key to it, because I think spending a lot of time looking at and Louis also touched on it. I have a developer background. I was a developer for 10 years, and touched on it. If I'm going to spend 3 years now looking at development as a course in varsity, another language and development language, mushrooms, when I've been spending 3 years focusing or majoring in a language that somehow is not necessarily redundant, but it's not the most sought after language in 3 years of your learning. So the archaic way HR has been done needs to be reviewed when it comes to how we get skills and get productivity levels much more in organizations.
There's definitely a conversation to be had there, and I think it's a conversation that IT and ICT can actually answer towards, people use very interesting ways in which they are recruiting their people now. But Candice, your hand is up if you would like to add to that.
Yes, I'm fully agreeing with what the panel is saying. So let's acknowledge we live in an app world. And if you look how often you update your apps, it's every time you update your phone. So if we're going to work in the technology space, we need to be mindful that that is how quick things are getting updated, right? So to the point that's being raised here, and especially in my experience, seeing a whole list of certifications on languages or technologies that are actually not what we're using today, it really makes the candidates fall short, right? And again, to what the panel has said, there's all these complementary sources of information for people to be updated. I mean, just as an example, to put a name out there, if you look at the Google stack, and pretty much their whole learning capability is for free, and it's there. You can understand the latest cloud version. You can understand a whole bunch of things, and it's at your disposal. Second to that, I think there's lack of awareness of all the different skills and roles involved in the full value chain of the ICT world, right? You've got a lot of people going for the same roles and the same stuff. And the truth is, there's so many niche opportunities that we have today. I mean, just take the data space. You're going to go to a data scientist, a data analyst, a data engineer, a data processing. Just in data, there's a gazillion different job opportunities, right? So I would definitely say don't all go for the obvious ones, and really try and find that updated information online that can help show niche areas of specialization. And how I believe organizations can contribute to that, because I agree there's a challenge with the, let's say, academic structures in that space, is internship programs, projects where they can be provided in these areas of current specialization related to the current world. And that's certainly a space that SA Tourism is going to play in to grow the volume of talent and also help nurture that in the ICT space. Thank you.
That's very interesting as well, that niche areas of specialization. But if I could ask you as a panel to also comment on, I am a manager. right? And I am a manager with within a specific region. Yet I cannot deny my need to understand ICT within my framework, because I have to manage people within the ICT framework, within growing your business towards the niche specialization. But I don't know what you are talking about. How do we, as an industry, support those people, support those managers? What is the responsibility of each and every manager listening today, people aspiring to be managers? Louisa, thank you so much for taking this answer, for taking this question. Who's responsible here, and how do we bridge that gap? Because it's a gap. I don't know.
I love this one, Linda, and you are correct. There's a trend globally around making people responsible for. I'm talking in the context of information security, so bear with me. That's my focus.
Yes.
Where managers, people are forced. Whether you're a doctor, you're a dentist, you will have customers online. You are going to have client records. And as an example, in South Africa, there's a POPI Act, the Protection of Personal Information Act, that mandates and forces people. We talk about data subjects, which is the people, and data processors. So if you have people's data, the law speaks to you and says, at the very least, they expect reasonable controls that you should have put in place to protect your client's data. So the law says, I don't care who you are, what you do, you are responsible for protecting your client's data. Client data sits on laptops, sits on cell phones, sits on iPads. So everybody is now in technology. So what that means is that, as Linda, how you do it, you do sessions like this. There are many ways to communicate. One of the things we provide as Claro for is cybersecurity awareness training. So because one of the main attack vectors is people leveraging people's lack of knowledge to break into your environment. They do that by doing things like phishing, where they pretend, where Linda, so somebody will pretend to be Linda and send an image and message to the employees to say, I want you to do X, Y, Z, pay this person, and they think that's you. So everybody's impacted. How do you do it? You do webinars. Companies like myself do basic tips, because not everybody is as advanced. So you want to do basic tips like, what's a strong password? You must explain to people what a strong password is. Use minimum 8 characters, use special characters. You need to explain to people, be wary when using public Wi-Fi. So it depends on who you are talking to. At the more advanced level, if I was to go and talk to Mankwe or Dean as an example, the conversation I would then have to bring, perhaps the conversation would focus around, South Africa has a corruption problem as an example. Are you looking at your environment for bad actors? Do we need to do forensic investigation? So depending on where you find yourself in terms of level of expertise, we've touched on Udemy's, Coursera's. The information is out there. Everybody has to take ownership to make themselves empowered online citizens, because we have been forced to become online citizens. And it's not good enough to be online and then say that you are not protected. There are many ways to get information.
There's so much that I have to say about that, and stories that I can share, being here in Nigeria and experiencing cybersecurity at its maximum. It's phenomenal. But I don't want to take my stories. I would like to hear Mankwe, whose hand was up first, and then Kutso, if you would like to add value to what Louisa just said. Or I'm sure you are going to.
Thanks, Linda. Actually, as Boyce was talking, Louisa, I reflected on one thing, right? Let me call it Citizen Development 2.0, right? About democratizing technology from an inclusion perspective, right? I think it's one of those sustainability goals for organizations. It's not just like financial inclusion has become important, digital inclusion has become important. So even if you are not a complex developer, there are solutions, whether it's low code, no code, in which people can create those solutions by themselves. I think from a visionary perspective, I bring back to mostly corporate social investment, sustainability goals, right? Which what Forum is talking about, to say organizations should be conscious of including the community around digital and have initiatives specifically focused on, say, how do we, for example, as a Coca-Cola brings us into the digital inclusion economy? How do I talk to my partners as Vodacom to say, how can we assist, from laptops to teaching them, to talking to Microsoft to say, can you give these courses for free to the economy? But I think maybe coming back to those triple bottom line reporting, the emphasis is always on the financial, right? But few organizations, for example, will go to the annual report and talk about digital inclusion, or about how these technologies are impacting the community and the youth, and how are they talking to people like Kelly and bringing the organizations along. So we do training for compliance training, that NPT 1%, and then we give it there, which is a tax, and nobody gets employable. I'm talking about the consciousness of leadership to be deliberate about including people into these discussions, internally and externally, of course. That's what I mean. Thanks.
That's a fantastic statement, many fantastic statements, that employability, conscious leadership, the triple P, people, planet, profit, the fourth one, purpose, sustainability goals, the Africa 2030 goals. We need to consider that as well as Africans. Kutso, I'm so sorry I interrupted you. If you would like to continue the conversation there.
Sure. Thanks, Linda. Just to add to what Loisa and Manko have said, this topic, ICT, is very intimidating to people that are outside, and that's just being honest about it.
Yeah.
It's got many buzzwords, and as a manager, for myself, being in charge of the SABC News technical strategy, I'm very fortunate to have an engineering background and having been involved for so many years that I understand it. It's just how I think. But I need to make the staff members that aren't aware as well. You need to bring them closer to what ICT is about, because many people are actually using ICT every day without knowing that they are actually in there. I'll make an example with words like OTT. People have Netflix at home, they have YouTube, but if you just say OTT and don't break it down to what it is, they actually don't know that they're actually involved in OTT. You have things like cloud. That word cloud really loses some people, but if you just explain that when I say cloud computing, your computer at home that we can access as a family, that is cloud computing right there. Somebody has to host that server. So it's up to us as leaders, as managers, to break down those terminologies and make this easier and make people realize that you are within it. Kele touched on it, that speak to the community, speak to those students that have just graduated. E-learning is there. I mean, if you have a degree in something, it's so much easier to go on the e-learning side of things and add a bit of that knowledge to the skills that you have. And that's what will take us far. But it really helps if you're a manager or a leader in that position to influence and make it easier for people to understand what ICT is about.
I agree. And having a panel like this, sharing your experiences, sharing your knowledge, and sharing what everything is about is 100% phenomenal. But unique as well. But I think it's because you understand the urgency of sharing your knowledge, of exactly like you now said, is that people don't realize and understand that they're using technology, which has been made very user friendly to a certain degree. If you halter the fear that you might break the toy that you are given to access the things that you accessing. But even just shopping online, people are doing that much more, and maybe COVID added value to that, or COVID made or jump started that, or advanced that quicker. We've had that conversation within the media and retail webinars that we had as well. But I want to come back to this employability consciousness, as well as ethical statements that you made a little bit earlier, Mankwe, because there's definitely and maybe Luyusa, you can also add value there within the cybersecurity framework, is that I mean, watching a documentary can be about social media and how this information is shared and how people get your information and start prompting you to things that you like. certainly for us as South Africans understand with the POPI Act, and we are very sensitive when it comes to information sharing in South Africa. It's not so all over the world, right? Not everyone has such a strong POPI Act as we do that protects us. What is ethics within IT? Maybe I should just leave the question there. Because that's certainly something that a lot of people will argue without sense or without understanding what is behind it. So maybe Candace, Dean, Kelly, if you would like to add, if you'd like to say something. Mankwe, I see that you're moving hands around and your eyes are moving, which when my dad's eyes does that, I know that he's thinking. So if you would like to say something about that. Oh, I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. I was reading I think everybody should be familiar with what is the metaverse, right? Of a use case of a woman who's violated in the metaverse, right?
Yeah.
So even if it's
Yes.
happening in a virtual world, it's got legal implications, maybe let me call it in the physical world. To say most companies have launched something in the metaverse, people are buying land, people, etc. There are certain things, even on Twitter or even as an avatar, maybe I'm cycling or doing something. What are the legal implications of that? So not even from ethics, just from legal, you find that the legal system hasn't even caught up. By the time the regulators put a regulation in, or a law or an act, technology is 10 years ahead. So it raises a lot of these things about how do we regulate, how do we behave, right, in a virtual world, even within companies, with immersive learning and gamification, etc. It raises all of these questions. But maybe the second one, which I've reflected on with things like automation, things we are going on about creating efficiencies, etc. I think most of the leading thinkers have talked about, we will end up with a lot of unemployed people, right? Is that maybe issues of a universal social grant becomes applicable, because as we innovate more and more, it becomes more complex, right? To even operate in that space. Technology looks simple on the surface, but in the back, it needs an electrical engineer who can talk bits and bytes, ones and zeros, to understand what will happen to mass unemployment, especially in countries like Africa, which cannot keep up. So you find that the first world will accelerate a lot more. The third world falls a lot more behind. And what is the ethical considerations that leadership, whether at political or as global organizations, should reflect on, even in the environments that they operate in? Maybe it's just some of those things that just top of mind that I can think of, but because there are ethics as well, there is no answers. It's those things that leads to this type of conversations.
Yeah.
Dean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Mangwe's touch on that was mostly around the organization. I want to take it to the other side, where we're looking at let's take it from a B2C digital service, which is completely different to your corporate environment. And if you look at your B2C environment, where I'm a digital service provider being directly consumed by a consumer on a day-to-day basis, the ethics thereof can also lead to whether that service is being taken for a quality of a service or maybe a problematic service, for lack of a better word. The fact that let's take a simple example. I think in the B2C space, there's been contentious discussion around data privacy, and me as a consumer or as a provider or a service, what am I doing with the consumer's data? And it's led some of the big players, being looked at with a different eye globally around data privacy. So, and then that also boils down to ethics. But it is something that is probably left too much up to the organization to discuss at what threshold these ethics will be allowed, or what certain things will be allowed. And I think in reality, it is left to the organizations, because if you look at it, the regulatory is always playing the catch-up game. So it is always about us as providers of services. At what level of ethics do we want to be able to be seen as products, and vice versa? Our consumers are starting to look at things like that. Ethics are becoming a big part of Why would I want to take up a service like XYZ, a Talk 360, for example, because I don't know what this Dean guy is doing with my data? Then that service is not viable for some of the consumers, because they have no clear understanding what my service or what their information is being used for on my side.
And who really reads the terms and reference, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the argument of any app, but I gave it to you in your terms of reference. Yeah. Lois, so your hand was up. Did you drop it for a reason, or would you?
I noticed that you noticed it was up, so I decided to take the distraction away. I mean, in my space, right, the issue of ethics comes across all the time. Whether it's a skill called a certified ethical hacker, because yes, you do need hackers on the good side as well, and they need to be ethical. Whether we get involved at the late stage of an engagement where something has happened and there needs to be a forensic investigation, who did what, when, we start going through cell phones and laptops. You cannot divorce the issue of ethics. When we look where we're going on the issues of automation, I know one of the examples that we typically talk about is once you have a self-driving car and it's driving down the road, in the left lane, there's 3 grannies, in the right lane, there's a 1-year-old. How does the car decide who to run over if it has calculated that it cannot stop in time? It's a tough one. And the fact that AI learns from what it sees around, we've seen this in Watson as an example from IBM, which works quite well, but in lesser degrees, where AI technologies are then put in front of customers. Perhaps Candice decides, a tourism decides, let's put on our Twitter or on our social platforms a chatbot or something along those lines. Am I still hearable and visible? Looks everybody's frozen.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
So we decide to deploy a chatbot. That chatbot learns from the interactions that it gets from people. And there's been many examples where chatbots have been taught to swear. They started showing sexist tendencies or racist tendencies or misogynist tendencies. Yes, based on what it's been exposed to. So the subject of ethics in this space is a critical one. There's an element of now us, what are we doing? I'm confronted by this on a daily. We do monitoring of people's environments, emails, anything that you can think of, we need to monitor. So unless our customers feel comfortable that I, as Loisa, the business owner, or our employees are ethical, unless we conduct ourselves accordingly, since we're getting exposed to each other now through social media, and the people can easily pick up what we're doing, the issue of ethics is going to prevent us from growing our businesses or acquiring new customers, Dean, because we know data is the new oil. If you have a TransUnion type incident, apologies to TransUnion if they're here, where people's data is stolen, you are going to suffer from how people see your business and how you treat their information. And then remember, just one last thing, you cannot change your biometric information, right? So if Mankwe decides to, or Kuto decides to deploy something for their employees where they sign in via their iris or via their fingerprints, or Candice decides to do something where tourists get a special, they scan in and you South African, we give you a discount. Once that fingerprint, once that iris information is stolen, we cannot change it. What do we do? So ethics are critical as to how we treat our people's information as well now, but it's critical to look at where we are going as businesses as well to ensure that we don't find ourselves wanting in the new age.
Mm-hmm. And I think whenever it comes to ethics, I mean, ethics is also personal. What is good for the goose is not always good for the gander. There's a general understanding of what ethics should look like, and across borders, across genders even. Those standards might be different because it's influenced by so many different things. So it does make the ethics question, and can it be AI that learns, and should we allow that to go that way? And will it always be manned by an individual who's also biased? It's such a hot topic that we can talk about it the whole afternoon, because it just adds so many more questions and so many more ways in which we could see this technology, ICT industry moving forward. So I would like to, see it's about, I can't believe that the time has flown this far. I would like to, let's have a look if there are any questions in the, if everyone is okay, if I have a look at the chat function, see if there's any interesting questions that that one of the participants might have had, might have given you. See, there we go, chat function. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen, that you would like to answer before I start, everyone, to give us your closing thoughts on this? And it's almost unfair to ask you to summarize or to say what you would like the participants to walk away with today, because we've touched so many things, from skills, from the gaps, the divide that might be happening very soon, from what it means to be capable within your environment, how we need to adjust towards not just having papers against walls, but to actually have the skill and the competence to do the job. And what does that take? How will recruitment look in the future? How should we adapt to that? There were so many things that we touched and didn't get the opportunity to conclude within this webinar. So I don't see any specific questions at this stage in the chat function of the webinar. But maybe if I could ask you, as the panel, as the experts in the field, what question do you think should have been asked? Anyone? Kelly, shall I put you on the spot here?
You mean by the participants?
The participants at this stage have not asked any questions in the chat function. I don't know if I'm just not seeing it. Events will soon let me know, Anita. But what do you think? What questions do you think, Kelly, should have been asked by the participants, by me, by anyone?
I think the very ones that you've just summed up very nicely then. Like, what is the future of HR really? How does recruitment look like? I know I literally hired somebody that was tagging me so much on LinkedIn. And I was so frustrated. Like, this kid was like so into what we are doing, and she kept checking up on me, says she's interested. I think initially she actually wanted to be one of the entrepreneurs, and we spoke, and I was like, call me in January. And January came, like, oh, but do you remember I still said I wanted to do this? I'm like, okay, call me in February. Before February came, she'd prepare me to say, look, you said I must call you in February, so I'm just preparing you that I will be calling you, right? And I was like, okay, I'll have my business development manager speak to you. And they spoke to her, and it turned out, you know, there's one quality that I look for when I employ is the attitude. Like, on a very serious note, you can teach skill, but you can't teach attitude. So I have a nice team of 11, and all of them are just the most sweetest people alive. And as a result, everybody can jump in across, about and around, from business development to technical to you must see us when we're in an event, you know. So it has changed so much, recruitment. It's no longer seriously about send me CV and you want to see this kind of thing. It's about demonstration. It's about following and seeing what people are doing on social media, how they demonstrate their leadership, interaction, and all the other qualities that you're looking for as an employee. I mean, as an employer. I mean, so many times we've also heard of people that were fired because of comments that they made online. I was doing a homework with my son where they were talking to them, and I think, Loisa, you mentioned it, being a digital citizen. Getting them to realize that as a digital citizen, you create a footprint. And you may have done it as a 10-year-old, but sometime down the line, somebody's going to be looking at you, looking for references, and they go to the platforms. You know, it's that digital, it is that permanent. And going back to the issue of ethics, we said it's a global, it's a digital world, a society that we are creating. And like every other society, there's principles, there's ethics, there's a whole lot of governance that is really has, and hence we ended up with the POPI Act. You know, I mean, I know I'm always frustrated by all those calls that I get every 2 seconds that wants to sell me something, and I get mad. Where did you get my information? It's not supposed to be. But it's a digital space. HR, it's not what it used to be, and we keep praying that it becomes a lot more agile, because gone are those days really where you want to get a 10-page CV of somebody that has lied about a lot of things, because those ones are really good, eh? They can do a really beautiful, and they're very good in the interviews, and when it comes to delivery, it's something else. It's something else.
Definitely. I think we've all experienced that. Dean, your hand was up. Kutso, then Candace. Dean? I agree, Louisa.
Yes, I think I think for you asked us what questions should the part of the webinar be asking, and I see somebody's asked something which is around skills. What are the future skills needed? And I'm going to talk from my personal experience. Is that one of the biggest challenges we have globally, and I think it's a global phenomenon, is skilled developers. I mean, I think developers are a sought after commodity, especially in my space, and we're seeing a lot of having to hire developers from all over the world. I mean, and having to work on a hybrid model of working. I think that's where the future of HR is also going. I think you have companies that are now looking at, I think you have the big corporates would have, an office in South Africa, an office in hub in another continent, but you have the small guys like us who are much smaller, and our robustness, we need the resources, but we might not have a presence in a certain country, but actually reliant on services from that specific country. And it's becoming part of what we're seeing a lot as a phenomenon that's coming out. But with the skill short, it also gives the people with a skill set bargaining power. And when I say about that is that the skill set that we're sorting after, we are seeing that we can't dictate terms anymore. The terms are dictated by the people that actually we want to hire because they have the skill set that we need. Sure. And I'll give you some examples. COVID was an eye opener in anybody's workforce, and a lot of people still want to maintain with that hybrid way of working. I want to work at home, and I'll come to the office twice a week, as an example. I'm all for it because my whole notion is, do I really care where the person's working from? Or I look at the productivity or the output that they give me at the end of the day? So those are the things that we start looking at the future of HR and the future of how we're going to be managing as workforces in the future. I think that might be another webinar for another day. But to also just add to the question that the one of the users has asked is, what are the skill sets? I'm seeing development as one that is definitely required. In my B2C world, also we're seeing a lot of data and digital skills, or digital media, or digital skills being required in terms of your social media. And I think if people want to start getting access to some of these markets or trying to work in these markets, you could start by looking at some of these skills, which we've tested in quite a few times, online courses, a lot of online stuff that you can find to at least start building your basic fundamentals in each of those areas of expertise. But I can say now, please, I'm always looking for developers. I'm always looking for strong digital marketeers. And this is a skill set that we're looking at if you want to look at competing at a global level as digital services.
And definitely competing at a global level, because
yes,
like you were saying, no matter how large your company or small your company is, the talent is out there, and we are employing globally. So the village is becoming smaller and smaller. Kutso?
Sure, thank you, Linda. The question that I would have expected to see is how has the advancements in ICT stifled jobs? I mean, with ICT, and I'm going to speak from SABC's experience, there's a lot of automation that we have now. Things that could have been done by many people, we can now automate and have machines doing that for us. But we still keeping our HR force as is, because what it allows us to do now is to do more. By more, I mean produce more programs. And with DTT and the social media platforms that we have, we can produce as many channels as we want to. With OTT, we can have a pop-up channel that just does something today and tomorrow it's not there. So traditionally, how things are done, for example, to produce a football match, which is what most people watch, it takes about 55 people that will go to FNB Stadium and produce this match. And it's not just those 55 there. We also have people in studio as well who are receiving that. So that number goes up into the 70s. That is very expensive. You take that match to Cape Town, flying 55 people to Cape Town, accommodating them there and giving them allowances, it's quite expensive.
Oh.
But if you can remote that and say who actually needs to go, it's your technicians and it's probably your camera people. And now we have robotic cameras. Some cameras don't even need to be manned. If you can reduce that number, how many matches can I then do in a day? And that same crew that would have gone to the stadium, stays in Auckland Park, receives pictures. They can not only do soccer only, they can do swimming, soccer, and we can put all those things out onto our platform, which ICT has made available to us. So it's not really going to cut jobs, but it will allow us to save money where we are overspending and on human capital, and put that money towards rights and actually do and produce more, which will be beneficial to everyone. So yeah, I don't think it should scare people that automation will really cut jobs, but we can do more with less going forward.
Thank you so much for that statement. I'm putting some people at ease as far as, oh, the robots are going to take my job. You know, so bad of me. I know, but I had to say it. I had to get that one in. Candace, if you would like to say something, or I know you do.
Yes. The question I would have expected to hear is, how can I get noticed? Because what we study, a lot of people are studying, right? And when hiring managers are recruiting, they get a lot of CVs. I share Kelly's passion. It's you need to think of something of how you can be noticed. And if I perhaps just share a little bit of what stood out for me with some candidates in the area, one thing was to solve a problem, right? It's not that you just learned coding. It's not that you maybe just developed an app, but that you solve a problem of sorts, a life problem, a business problem. And I can tell you, if you sneakily solve a problem of any corporate brand, they will find you, they will reach out to you, and they will want to have a longer discussion on collaboration, right? So that's a way beyond a CV. The second thing is, how self-taught and self-engaging is this individual? How far beyond academics did this individual go? Or did they just stick to what was in the academic program? That also sets candidates apart quite a bit. And then the third thing is, and we touched about it quite a bit, is the attitude and your soft skills linked to that, right? The way you present yourself, the way you carry yourself, even the way you present any information, it says a lot. And always remember, this is the digital space. So to print a 20-page CV, it's not digital, is the thing, right? And just the package already says a lot about how you are as a candidate. So that's my input. Thank you very much.
That's a very nice tip to give, and very obvious, but who would have thought, né? The printed paper is not digital, ladies and gentlemen, and that is so true, but difficult for people to kind of get away from, right? People plan a profit. Here we go again. So very, very, very interesting that you brought that to the forefront. I have one question. If we don't, if we do still have a few seconds to answer this question from Tamara. Thank you so much. Tamara is asking, how do we start this journey to gain these skills? Where do I start? What is the beginning? Now, Dean has already said he's always in the lookout for developers. Candace, you said that if you can solve a problem, if there's a brand solution out there that you can solve it, and those people will keep on coming back to you, right? But where do we start with this? Where do you, like, and I think you said it, all of you said it at this time, start with getting knowledgeable about what is around you, right? What these, Candace, you can answer this much better than me. Please go ahead.
Actually, I just want to say something right up front. Find something you are passionate about, right, is what I'm going to say, because if that doesn't exist, you're going to be miserable. So that'd be the first thing, like, explore, understand the whole universe of technology, and and play around, experiment things, and identify your passion, and then just go for it. That's from my heart the way to go.
Find out. And sometimes it is signing up for a course for 4 hours and to just listen what it's all about, and you think, this is not for me, and then move on to the next, just to find out what it is within this vast value chain that you might be able to add value to, with your passions, with your uniqueness, with your talents, with your creativity, etc. Because it's very, I cannot agree with you more there, Candice. Dean, I see that you have switched your mic on, and you as well, Mankwe. I think that we have space for 2 more comments before we need to thank and wave, if I can put it that bluntly, because we're running out of time. So yes, please, Dean, you went purple, if I might put it that way.
Yeah, I actually went purple when Candice was saying that, and I think it's quite critical that the basic fundamentals is not just trying to be part of something that you think is a hype or is a demand. It is about passion. I think the whole thing on passion is still something that you always need to look at, and I think it's critical to understand the diverse landscape within this industry, and where do you fit in, where your passion in within this. I mean, I think some of us have fortunately been able to do certain elements of this industry, and we've found where we are passionate about. But some people don't have the luxury of going through each or a couple of these to get themselves to where they are. But it's always looking at that, and I think what Kayla is doing, for example, is really, really awesome in at least giving some of these youth some basic fundamentals of understanding what it entails to be a videographer, what it entails to be a certain thing, a certain career in this industry. And I would always, say, look at institutions like hers that will actually be able to give you some fundamentals of what does the career path mean for a developer? What does the developer work actually entail? I was a developer, and Mongo will tell you the same thing. You write a lot of code, and sometimes you think, yes, I'm not going to do this forever, but some people enjoy it, and it's a passion that you have to have for some of these skills within the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, again, that 4th P in the triple P, purpose. If you can't find your purpose within what you are doing, you are forever going to be working.
Yeah.
And we all want to move beyond that, right? And do what we love. Mankwe, if you would like to add to that.
Yeah, actually, something I was just reflecting on when you said what questions would I would ask. Is that how you manage in a virtual world, right? Because I still to say, has management changed from a traditional way we've managed for people in the office, for people who could even never meet in the employee life cycle of them working for a certain organizations, and what challenges does it pose for? Then it brings questions about trust, right? How do you start trusting more and resilience and etc. So those are some of the things I can actually think about. But in terms of starting a career in this space, as opposed to medicine or law or being an engineer, no government finds you. You can start calling yourself an IT specialist tomorrow, as long as you can do an HTML page. And that's why everybody's an IT specialist. But I'm coming back to low barriers to entry. If you've got the passion, right, and the drive, I know that whether you go to Udemy, every big OEM is having some skills development in country, etc. I mean, we have people in India, I've got people working for us in Holland, etc. In the world we live in, actually, it becomes boundaryless, right? Some of our challenges about retention is for people now being paid in euros while sitting in country and working in projects overseas, right? Because now it's a virtual world. For as long as you've got the key skills and you're passionate about it, it's just a matter of time.
Absolutely, a matter of time. Unfortunately, ours are running out. Look at how I just did that. So unfortunately, I really am. This is really unfortunate, because there's so many things that we should still be talking about, and that we could still be talking about within your phenomenal industry. I really it's quite inspiring, because there's something for everyone within this industry, from creatives to logical thinkers to analytical minds, problems, something for everyone. And I think that is very often misunderstood because of our preconceived notions of what it means to be an IT specialist, right? And that's always something that we should be mindful of. The landscape has changed. The people working in that landscape is phenomenal, wonderful people that you can learn and just willing to teach what they know and how they share information with other people. So allow me to thank all of the panelists. And I think if you could all please switch on your cameras and let us see you again. To be involved in this conversation and to add value to everyone who's listened to this conversation, and who have many questions. I do assume that is still there, but your core, the core kind of idea, the core message that I get from all of you, and if you would like to say something about that as a quick final goodbye, is that it is about passion. It is about exploring. It is about understanding the environment you're in. You might not want to become an IT specialist, but you're sure in a position where you have to understand what IT specialists do in order for you to manage them, in order for you to converse in this world, even if it's just as a consumer. Converse in the world that is now completely moving towards the digital age, and expecting you to be comfortable with the digital environment and with everything that is given to us so greatly. So from my side, as a Regenesys employee and a manager and African citizen, a West African citizen at this stage in my life, I am completely grateful for you taking part in this conversation and how you added value to this conversation. The thanks are coming in on the side from the chats and from the people around, and thanking you for your time, for sharing your knowledge, for showing us how important it is for you to share this knowledge and to become part of this global village, which we're all part of, and which we all share, and makes us very close and one with one another. Simunye has never had more meaning than it does now, right? Look at where we are, look at how we function, look at how we support one another. So my sincere thanks to all of you to become part of this conversation. I have had such a wonderful time, and I'm stealing a minute of yours, but thank you so much. Everybody, if we could just give a clap and wave, and from Regenesys say, looking forward to having further conversations with you and to sharing your knowledge and experience with our students, with everyone around it. I'm humbled by you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Cheers, bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe.